So part of the challenge of probate and trusts when you have to take care of assets is accounting. And I often get asked, do I know somebody who can do the accounting? Of course, a basic accountant can't do it, or CPA could do it, but there's special nuances in fiduciary accounting. And I find that they get tripped up regularly. And so I was really excited to reach out when I met Aaron to share him with you today. So Aaron MacCarley, thank you so much for being on our call today and talking about fiduciary accounting.
Yeah, my pleasure, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here and speaking with you.
Good. So tell me give me a little background. How did you become whatever you do, fiduciary accountant, fiduciary
accountant? Yeah, sure. Well, the lawyer industry is, runs in the family, you could say. So both my parents are lawyers. My mother specifically is a probate attorney. So
there you go.
This all came about 6 years ago. I was moving to Europe, where I would end up staying for many years or several years. And I asked her, do you know any work in the law field that doesn't require law school, but could also be, something I could do even better if it's remote? And it just so happened that the person she used for her fiduciary accounting services was retiring at that time. So she got out the fiduciary accounting handbook and all the reading materials I'd need, got me on this course. And I basically taught myself with her guidance and the guidance of this other fiduciary accountant how to do the fiduciary accountings. And when this accountant retired, I took on basically all of the law firm's fiduciary accounting needs. And it was great for me because I was able to use this job as a means to stay abroad and self-sufficient for that time period, and especially during the pandemic, when other jobs sort of flattened out, this was something that continued to be available. So
nice.
I got into it. So it's been about 5-6 years now doing these for both her law firm and other Los Angeles-based law firms.
Way to go, Mom. So let's talk a little bit about the process. At its core, accounting should be accounting, whether for fiduciary or not. But it seems that accountants get tripped up because there's procedures and there's processes to get the documents. What do you see as the difference that you provide that maybe other accountants don't provide?
Yeah, well, you mentioned that a lot of clients do, initially go to firms that may be CPA firms, however, specializing in tax accounts and things of that nature.
Right.
And like you said, there is a big difference because the product here we're creating is not so much for people who are very good with numbers, as you might find in the IRS. It's not, aimed at that kind of market. It's aimed at judges and other lawyers who may not have an accounting background, or may not like studying numbers very much. So the purpose here is to make all the information about this client's finances very easily legible, concise, and easy to read. And as you mentioned, there are certain standards that the probate court enforces in order to meet this end. So
there's one thing the probate court does, it's enforce certain rules, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. So our advantage is that having only, specialized in these for 6 years, me and my, small team have become very proficient in doing these very rapidly and accurately, and with an eye for, what the court is looking for. Whereas you might not find that even in an experienced CPA who might be excellent in taxes may not have the specific niche experience needed to properly create such a fiduciary accounting.
So I imagine you must from time to time get people coming to you saying, I went to another accountant, can you take over this? It's a bit of a mess. What are some of the common mistakes you see otherwise competent accountants make that those who aren't familiar with this niche are going to fix?
Yeah, we do get that sometimes. And what I've seen in the past is generally a lack of understanding of how the court handles certain assets. So whether it might be a house or stocks or things of this nature, which may change value over time. which will greatly influence the numbers in a fiduciary accounting, which is based on a sort of double entry accounting method, versus if you're preparing a tax accounting and looking at profits versus losses. Those don't really factor as much into a fiduciary accounting, whereas they may be, well, they are very important for, of course, a tax accounting or business accounting. But in our case, no, it's more about looking at different values and comparing them over time with regards to appraisals and sales values, which may have less to do with profits and losses, but still play, very huge part in, balancing the accounting, which is what the probate court looks for as number one. They want everything to be balanced to the penny.
To the penny.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the IRS and the franchise tax board, you round off the nearest dollar, but in probate court, it's to the penny.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
So they want exactitude. Exactly.
Yeah, it's the whole process is about exactitude. The whole probate from front to back and that's why we want to work with specialists. So I'm sure one of the reasons why people don't bring you in initially is not just your fee, but maybe a fear and assumption as to what it's going to cost. Though I often tell people getting the wrong partners will cost you more in the long run because it would be months and months of delays and court appearances and such. How do you manage fees and how do you estimate them for somebody who may not have any idea how long the process takes?
Yeah, well, this is one of the difficult things with regards to fiduciary accountings because of how varied they can be in terms of time spent. There's some very simple cases which may only take 4 or 5 hours to complete the accounting, assuming there's very little transactions and very little activity, which is often the case. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have very complicated accountings where a trust or estate or conservatorship may have 3, 4, 5, 6 different accounts. And our job is to go through and record every single transaction and how those factor into the overall balance of the estate's assets, which of course can take serious time if there's, say, some of them have thousands of transactions. So estimating we do run on an hourly basis, and I can say based on a quick glance at bank statements, that's usually when I'm able to give a rough estimate of how this might look. But before that, it's hard to say anything because if you have 1 year of bank statements with a couple transactions a month, it's going to be very different than 1 year bank statements where they have maybe 30, 40, 50 transactions a month.
Right. Now, do you also assist in getting the bank statements and transactions and being able to download it? I know one of the challenges estates have is when the season's gone, how do you get the W-9s or the whatever the forms are, 1099s on the income and the bank statements to get the year-end statements? Do you get involved in helping accumulate the information?
Sure. Yeah, we do help out accumulating that information. One of the advantages actually to the fiduciary accounting is that really to do our job, the most important document is the bank statement / brokerage statement. If we have all of those, we can at least put together a balanced accounting. That's just, how the math will work. You have the statements, you can compare it against. So we don't necessarily need any tax documents. Sometimes extraneous documents can be helpful. And there are cases where we do need, such as escrow statements for a sale of a property. But as far as that goes, what we do is we help identify any necessary documents. And then we, since we do not have power of attorney, we can't necessarily go to the banks and help them get them from the bank. We can identify what's to be gotten, and hopefully the fiduciary or the client we're working with still has access to those accounts. There are cases where it gets a little bit more complicated if the accounts are held under different names. But I'd say in over 90% of the cases, getting at least the bank statements is usually okay. It's not a problem.
Do you file tax returns? Do you help prepare tax returns, or do you?
I do not.
Hand off? So you just hand off to a CPA who does the tax returns at that point?
Yeah. If the client wants tax returns, that's a completely different field of accounting and does require certain certifications, obviously, which we're not a CPA firm. We are handling only fiduciary accountings.
So do you have particular accounts you work with, you recommend and do well with, or do you?
You know what? I think
People have
we
their
don't
own.
really, work in the tax field. So,
Yeah.
there's people I know who are accountants, but I can't say we have a direct line to anybody. It
Good.
depends on the needs of our client, really. And usually most of them have someone they've worked with in the past on those.
Got it. Got it. Good. Well, look, I appreciate the information. I know it gets a little technical, but I know that I appreciate professional excellence when I see it. And I think the main thing is you can't get excellent if you don't focus on something. So many practitioners in every field want to say they do everything. When somebody says, I only do this one thing and I do it well, my ears perk up because I'm always looking for experts. And I really appreciate the chance to chat today. If somebody wanted to talk to you in more detail about their own fiduciary accounting or perhaps a client referral, how would they get in touch with you, or how can they talk about it with you?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great if anyone needs help. My name's Aaron MacCarley, and we have our website, cafiduciaryaccounting.com. I can be reached via email at support@cafiduciaryaccounting.com. And my phone number is 818-624-1755.
Number one more time,
818-624-1755.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, Bill. It was a pleasure talking to you.